This is going to be a very unpopular opinion. I'm already getting ready for some of the YouTube comments, and I want to do a video about this. Is being an Uber driver and a Lyft driver bad? Now, initially, I feel like a lot of people watching this video are going to have three main perspectives pretty much right away. In one group, on one end, people will be like, well, no, like there's a lot of benefits to being a driver, the flexible schedule, you can work when you want, low barrier to entry, instant cash outs, etc., etc. Then a group in the middle being like, I don't know, I'm just watching this video for fun. Lyft and Uber is, I think, okay, I don't really know, whatever. And then the third party, the third category on the complete opposite end of the spectrum is like, absolutely, Lyft and Uber is horrible. Being an Uber driver and a Lyft driver is horrible. It's bad. They're the worst companies ever, blah, blah, blah. And as a result of this, I've gotten a lot of comments and questions of people saying, hey, Mark, I'm considering signing up, but I just see so much hate towards Lyft and Uber, or I see some people liking it. What is the truth? Here's kind of the harsh truth I'm going to give. One, it depends. I will talk about that. But two, and again, this is where the unpopular opinion is really going to come about. Lyft and Uber, in a sense, is not forcing anybody to drive for them, right? Now, let me explain. Let me back up for a second. As I've said in numerous videos, your location is the number one factor that determines how much money you can make as a driver. I say this in almost every video for a couple different reasons. One, of course, I feel like for a lot of drivers, they want to know, am I going to make a good amount of money? And well, it really depends. If you live, let's say, in a really hot spot area like LA, San Francisco, Boston, Chicago, New York, or whatever, you can potentially make a lot of money. However, if you're in a remote part of Ohio or another just kind of like very low-key area, I gotta be honest, it might not be worth it at all, and you're probably better off pursuing something else. But the second reason why I really like to bring that up is to show the difference of perspective. Because is being an Uber driver and Lyft driver bad? Is it good? It really depends on you and on your location, how much you drive. There are a lot of different factors. And I have mentioned this here and there in some videos, that I will do a video and I'll get a bunch of comments of people saying, hey, Mark, I love Lyft and Uber. I love driving for them. I make great money. I don't have to answer to a boss or anything. If I want to take time off on the weekend, I can. If, let's say, I wake up and it's a beautiful day out and I just want to go to the beach, I can just go. I don't have to tell anybody. If, let's say, I need to have $200 in my bank account that day to pay off a bill or whatever, I can drive and hit the instant cash out button and instantly have that money in my bank account. And that makes sense. On the other end, though, I get a lot of comments of people saying, Mark, I hate Lyft and Uber. I make no money driving for them. They treat their drivers like slaves. They don't give us any rights. They can deactivate us whenever they want. And just overall, we're getting paid almost nothing. And here's where things get very, very tricky, especially talking about this video. Both drivers are actually right. And when you do a meta-analysis, the driver that hates Lyft and Uber typically lives in a bad area to drive. The driver that loves Lyft and Uber typically lives in a good area to drive. That is really the biggest difference. And that's why I want to come to this point on this video that is Uber and Lyft bad? Honestly, it just really depends. In my opinion, I'm going to be blunt. The answer is really no. I think there's a tremendous amount of benefits to Uber and Lyft. And I want to stress, I'm not affiliated with Uber or Lyft. Like, I don't work for them. I don't get money from them to make these videos. They don't say, hey, Mark, do you mind making a video to like promote us? Like, I just do these videos on my own. But this is something I really want to talk about, especially now getting to the more unpopular part of this video. The fact that if you think about it, and I'm going to be kind of blunt here, not once has Uber and Lyft, as far as I know, but not once has Uber or Lyft ever gone to somebody, put a gun to their head, and said, hey, you have to be a driver. Whether you like it or not, you have to be a driver. Every single person who signed up to drive for Uber and Lyft has done so on their own free will. You could have easily applied to another job. You could have easily gone somewhere else and submitted your resume. You could have easily gone on Indeed or Monster or LinkedIn Jobs. No one's ever been forced, again, you never know. As far as I know, no one's ever been forced to be a rideshare driver. So when a lot of drivers contact me and complain saying, hey Mark, why are you making all these videos? They're treating their drivers like slaves. I'm driving and I'm just not making that much money and it's horrible. I always say, well, why are you still driving then? If it's that bad, and it very well could be. Remember, if your location is that bad of a location, if let's say and this is something that's kind of been evolving as well recently. If, let's say, there's a lot of talk of you becoming an independent contractor or employee or whatever, if, let's say, that makes things worse, then of course you should stop driving. And in a lot of cases and in a lot of locations, yes, Uber and Lyft does not pay as much as they used to pretty much everywhere. Uber and Lyft, especially given the location, pays their drivers horribly. So it brings up the question, though, if it's really that bad, why are you still driving? You should just go do something else. This is something I realized who's like more of a personal example. I used to be an accountant. I've mentioned that in a bunch of other videos. And the accounting firm I worked at was horrible. I'm just gonna be blunt. It was the worst place to work. You think ride sharing is bad? Try working at one of the big 4 accounting firms. And one day I kind of had to realize, you know what though? As much as I hate it, as horrible as this climate is for both my mental and physical health, and I might even say spiritual health as well, as horrible as it is, no one ever put a gun to my head and said, hey, Mark, you have to work at this accounting firm. I did it on my own free will. I signed up on my own free will. I applied and interviewed on my own free will. I accepted the internship on my own free will. I worked at the internship on my own free will. I then accepted the full-time offer before I graduated college with my free will, on my own free will. You get what I'm saying, right? Basically, all of this I did purely on my own free will. Same thing with you as a rideshare driver. And that's why I want to take a huge kind of step back now to go to the beginning of this video. Is Uber and Lyft bad or not? Yes, there are a lot of drivers who like to hate and bash Lyft and Uber, but I gotta be honest, in my opinion, I think it's really good. It's allowed tons of people to have amazing jobs. Like, let's be blunt, like I've said, it puts tons of drivers on the road to be able to make money whenever they want, however they want. The second thing, the barrier to entry. I mentioned this before, like when I was an accountant, these steps to get that accounting degree was pretty brutal, and I had to do all this stuff to get an accounting degree. And there's a lot of accounting jobs I've seen online. Again, I've mentioned this as well in other videos that pay, I don't know, depends. Let's say for an internal auditing job or whatever case is, might pay $25 to $30 an hour, but you need a bachelor's degree in accounting. However, when it comes to Lyft and Uber, there are a lot of places, a good amount of places, especially if you drive during the peak hours, if you hit the bonuses and everything, you can easily make $25 to $30 an hour, but you don't need a bachelor's degree. You don't even need an associate's degree. All you need is a license. If, like, say, you don't have a car, you can rent one through Lyft and Uber. So overall, I think Lyft and Uber, I gotta be blunt, and I might get a lot of hate for this, is pretty awesome. I think that they are amazing companies that allow tons of jobs to be put out there. And in addition to, it's really the first time ever, I think, in really human history, and this, again, maybe another unpopular opinion, but I really thought about this. It was the first 2 companies, I might as well say that, where you could be your own boss without fully being your own boss. It was the first time you could ever fully work at any time you want, make decent money, and then stop working whenever you want. It was the first time you didn't have to tell them your schedule in advance. It was the first time that you didn't really have to worry about any scheduling issues or whatever. It was the first time that really you could just start working and stop working at completely your own accord. And yes, there may be other rare situations. Like, I was even thinking like street performer, I guess, or if you want to do like panhandling, for example. I feel like that's the only other one I can think of that you can instantly go out, start making money, have that money done instantly. But as you can imagine, with street performing and whatnot, very, very unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get. The weather has a huge issue on that. There's a lot of different factors when it comes to street performing. That was the only real example I could think of. Maybe there's a couple other ones, but not to the extent of Lyft and Uber. That if you sign up through Lyft and Uber, you can quickly start working, quickly start driving, and make money doing so, and then instantly, via the instant cash out option, have that money in your bank account. And I know this video might get some hate or some unpopular opinion, but I did want to film it because a lot of people love to bash Lyft and Uber. And again, I have to stress, I have no affiliation with them. I don't care. Lyft and Uber's maybe seen my videos. I don't know. There's been a lot of videos where I've bashed them and I've talked about how horrible they are. And obviously, every company is far from perfect. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad. But at the end of the day, I do think Uber and Lyft is a really, really good thing that does exist, that gives a lot of people jobs that are purely flexible, that allows them to make a lot of money, and there's a lot of hours on the table for them to do so. Now, is Lyft and Uber perfect? No. I've talked about that in so many other videos of all the negative aspects. But remember, 1, no company is perfect. There's going to be good and bad on both sides. But 2, and again, I have to stress, Lyft and Uber never forced any driver to drive for them. Every driver's ever driven for Lyft and Uber, who's then complained about Lyft and Uber, has done so all on their own accord. They've done it on their own free will, so to speak. And yes, is, and I do have to kind of stress this point home. I know I'm kind of going in different parts in this video, but yes, does that mean that Uber and Lyft is perfect and doesn't take advantage of the drivers? No. Of course, Lyft and Uber's done a lot of stuff that I'm not a fan of in terms of paying their drivers less. I just did a video about this as well, how Uber is now or been kind of working towards not paying the drivers enough in New York City, for example. There was a push to kind of pay drivers more, and Uber's like, nope, we're going to stop that. We don't want to pay drivers more. That's messed up. There's no way around that. That's messed up. It's messed up that they're now deactivating accounts a lot more frequently, and they kind of treat their drivers a lot more disposable than passengers. It's messed up that they just try to do whatever they can to not give their drivers the amount that they should, especially, like I said in the beginning of this video, if you live in a bad location. But at the end of the day, among all that negative stuff, and there is a lot of negative stuff about ride sharing and Uber and Lyft, I still think there are amazing options, especially if you live in a good location, especially if you drive smart, you drive during the peak hours and everything. There's a tremendous amount of benefits to Uber and Lyft existing in our society that does help a lot of people out.